most people we meet or interview can do the job. I think the people we get super excited about are people who have a point of view on the world, the industry, the job, the space that we're working in. Like nobody wants to work with a robot. Like there's so many smart people, but we want to work with like interesting people. I think be excited, be emphatic about what you're working on, be excited about life. I always find it really funny. I remember one of my early interviews are like, what do you do for fun? And you feel like it's like a trick question. Like have an answer. Like, what do you do for fun? Like, what are you excited about? Like, you don't have to pretend to run marathons if you don't do that. But I remember one of my first interviews at Google, I was talking about reality TV. Like I was caught off guard and I was like, that's what I did last night. So that's what I'm going to talk about. But I can talk emphatically about reality TV. And I think that's fine, right? Me caring about reality TV connects to my passion about media and entertainment and like how storytelling plays into my life and what I care about. It doesn't have to be some perfect narrative, but like be a person and like talk about it. I think that's what people remember. Whenever you're in an interview, whether it happens formally or informally, there's always a like, tell me about yourself. And I think most people get nervous because they're like, what do they want to know? Like, my name is Courtney, I'm from Chicago and I like, here's my favorite food, or like, here's my whole life story. Figure out what that 90-second version of you is that tells people where you've been, what you're interested in, what you're great at, and where you're going. It's the stuff that is uniquely you, the stuff that if somebody had to have a soundbite about you that they're going to remember, they're going to be like, oh, Courtney was that one who did X, Y, and Z, and she's working on this, and she'd be great at whatever. Have that pitch ready at any point. That should be like 2 minutes in that interview you own that you can really drive the conversation and where the direction of that conversation goes. Be helpful. To me, that's been the best advice I've gotten from early on in my career and that I think about in every role position that I'm in. It's really hard early on in your career. And I think everybody has this anxiety of like, how can you really distinguish yourself? And like early on, like we're all building skills. You don't really know what your thing is. Like you may not know your superpower yet. People want to hire people that they like working with and who show up and contribute and have some energy. So really just think about like what your team, your manager, your organization, like what's the biggest thing on their mind? What are the smallest things on their mind that you can add value to, that you could take off their plate? I think that's the greatest mindset to have, I think at any level, from entry level to executive and everywhere in between. I think being helpful to your team is what gets you really far and what people remember and what makes people want to like vouch for you. Now, we did this exercise called 5 things, and it's literally writing 5 things about yourself, which sounds like vague, and it is, but it's the things that I continue to go back to. So it's the things that are you, regardless of the job, regardless of like the point in your career. It's the things that are like a little bit of your superpower, but like the things you are uniquely great at. So sometimes it's like who you are in your family. Sometimes it's who you are in your job, the things that like people kind of go to you for. If I'm in an interview, if I'm in a conversation, if you ever get that, anything else you want me to know about you? If you have some superpower that hasn't come out already, literally like think of your list of 5 things. What stuff like are intrinsically you? That stuff will continue to show up in your career. Like keep going back to it. And it's a big piece of who you are and how you show up in the world. And make sure that comes through when you're meeting with people, because it's going to be a big part of how your story forms together. And it's the additional layer on top of, I worked here and I went to school here. Like that stuff will like get you in the door. But the stuff of like these 5 things that are uniquely you, that's what's going to be what people remember. And that's how you will differentiate yourself. The only time I felt like I've had a bad interview, which everybody I'm sure feels like at some point, has been when I felt like I misrepresented myself. I think if you represent yourself and you don't get the job, then it's like, at least I showed up as myself. But when you go in trying to like perform in a way that's not unique to you, it's hard to sustain. And honestly, I think people can see through it because you're not as confident, you can't put it together. But if you lead with you, and I think having those 5 things just like helps ground you in what's you.